Welcome. Thanks for joining us for another Bear Creek conversation. What we're trying to do with these videos each week is to give us a chance to share together in the thing that I have missed maybe more than any other thing during this time when we've not been able to gather in our normal way as a church community. One of my favorite parts of being at Bear Creek is the surprise, unexpected, spontaneous conversation in the hallways on Sunday morning. Getting to talk with a brother or sister in Christ about what the Lord is doing in their lives, how their heart's encouraged by His word, how they're seeing Him at work in their life, in their work, in our church. I've missed that. And so what we're doing in these conversations is just giving us a chance to have those kinds of conversations and sharing them all together as a church community. And so today I'm getting to have a conversation with Krista McBroom, our student director, and during May, in the middle of all this period, our student director for 9 years here at Bear Creek. So happy 9-year anniversary.
Well, thank you. It's
here,
kind of crazy
Krista.
to think that I've been here for 9 years.
Yes, I mean, we celebrated your 9 years by just kind of shutting everything down.
Yep.
That's what we felt like we had to do. Before Krista was here at Bear Creek, she is a graduate of Carson Newman University.
Yes.
And also of the Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, has her seminary degree from Southwestern in Fort Worth. But has been here for 9 years, passionate about student ministry, especially passionate about discipling the girls to see them become women of faith and invest so deeply in that. We're grateful for that. And also a second generation student minister.
Yes,
well.
I am. My dad was a youth pastor for 40 years.
That's amazing.
So
that's a heritage. I also had a dad who was a youth pastor. So we both had the experience of growing up in our father's youth group. I couldn't make it in the family business.
So
I had to be with adults.
You know, I didn't really know that that's what I was going to do until senior year of high school. And God's like, hey, here you go. And I go off to college and He's like, student ministry. So just
that's amazing.
Followed in His footsteps.
That's great. So it will be amazing to think at some point what the combined years of ministry that your family will have to students, and just think the generations you will influence through that. That's really remarkable. Well, I want to just hear, it's funny because we've been working together as a staff, obviously, but not actually working together. So I'm trying to remember the last time I actually saw you and had a conversation in person with you. But Krista has been serving in so many ways, not only with all the great things that our student ministry have been doing, but also just ministering in helping with our social media and communications, and I'm sure even ways that I don't know, but you've just stepped up in so many ways. It's been wonderful. But I'd love to hear, beyond the excellent work that I know you've done, what is the work that the Lord's been doing in you? I mean, what have you seen the Lord do in your life and in your heart during these days? Well,
one of the things when we first started, as there's kind of more time at home, Pastor David encouraged us to be in the Word even more.
Yeah, that's right.
In one of our very first staff meetings. And so, I took that to heart, and I added a little time with God in the middle of the day. Like I stopped working, and I started doing this little devotional called Faith Over Fear by Lisa Stilwell. And I actually will be honest, I did it because a friend of mine asked me to do it with her. But I haven't done really short devotionals in a long time. So I was going, I don't know what I'm really going to get out of this. But there was a video element that went along with it, as on Facebook, people were going live and talking about the study. And so I started doing it. And I think I've gotten more out of that extra time with God than even what I would typically do during a normal season.
Wow, that's amazing.
And so it's been really cool to see God say, yeah, you think this is going to be simple and you're just going to be like, okay, that was great. And He has really probably shown me so much more than I ever anticipated.
Well, I love that it's and this is it's a good reminder for all of us that it is often in the simplest truths and in the simplest things that God brings the most profound change in our lives. And that's such a great example of that. Are there any particular verses of Scripture that you found yourself returning to? Just these have really been anchor verses for me during this time that the Lord keeps bringing to mind.
Yeah, so there's one in particular, the last, I guess really probably few weeks, and then it came up in actually the study, that little study was one of the verses one day. But it's 2 Corinthians 4, verse 17 and 18. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, and what is unseen is eternal. And so what we are facing, what's going on around, it's light and it's momentary. Like, it's not forever. But what is forever is eternity with Christ. And so God just keeps reminding me that this is momentary, and in that process, because it's momentary, He's doing something in me to use me in even greater ways later on. This is a moment I really have felt of Him refining me and challenging me to things that I don't understand right now.
Wow, that's great. And just to even think, that this is light. I think for a lot of us, obviously all of us have been impacted in some way. Just our routines are disrupted, relationships disrupted. But we've not all had the same impact. And so for some of us, we might say that it's light. But even for people who would right now say, man, this has been a heavy time for me. I've lost a loved one. I've lost a job. That the weight of glory that awaits us will make even those losses look light.
I would
That's
agree.
Just a hopeful promise.
And I would even say for me, this hasn't been light for me. Yeah. Personally, we've talked, I've been here 9 years, but I have no family here. So, and I live by myself. And so it has been a season of truly me and God. I've not gotten to see anybody really until just, recently. And in the last, couple of weekends, I've actually gotten to get out of the house and see people besides those I see during the week up here as we're doing videos and recording and stuff. And so,
or on Zoom calls,
or on Zoom or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and then in the midst of that, last week, I had a friend die in a car accident. And so it has, to read this verse and say it means a lot to me, and it uses the word light and momentary. It's light and momentary because I know who I lean on in the process.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow, that's so good. I know in times like this, especially as you described seasons of grief and times of reflection, there's often songs that the Lord uses to sustain you. Is there a song of worship that's just been meaningful to you during these days?
Yeah, and it actually goes right along with this verse. There's a group called For All Seasons, and they have a song called Light and Momentary based off of this passage. And I just want to read the chorus.
Yeah, please do.
To you. It says, we hold tight to the promise of new life. Our hope in Jesus Christ will never fail or fall. These light and momentary trials are gaining us a prize that far outweighs them all.
Wow.
And it's actually been on my Spotify playlist for a really long time, since last summer. They led worship for our camp last summer with the students. This first time I'd heard them, and I just absolutely loved their music. And so it's one of the songs that, every time it comes on, God just reminds me it's light and momentary. And actually, a couple weeks ago, we got the opportunity, the lead singer, Emily, for All Seasons, actually joined one of our Zoom calls with our students and did worship, and she did the song. And so I got to sing on Zoom this song, and it was just like, I love how God just continues to, hey, when I'm going to teach you something, I'm going to teach you through my word. I'm going to teach you through worship. I'm going to teach you through just moments that He gives.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you've had a unique vantage point in the ministry of not only what's happening in your heart and life, but you're seeing what's happening in the lives of our students as well. And so I just wonder, is there anything that you would just share that's encouraging to you about what God is doing in the lives of students at Bear Creek during these days?
I think the most encouraging thing, I kind of shared this a little bit with our Student Sunday, has really been watching our students and our seniors really encourage one another in the midst of really just this devastating time for our seniors, as their whole year has been decimated, that they have stepped up to one another and they've encouraged one another in getting through the loss of their proms and the change up of graduation. A lot of them are graduating outside now, and the Texas heat, it's just crazy to me, but that to see the joy, I'm starting to see social media posts, and just to see the joy in their face that they're graduating, that they achieved the goal despite the obstacles that got put in the way the last few months. And so just to watch those seniors, but just even our students, as we have worked with them and engaged with them through social media and Zoom as much as we can, I mean, they really are encouraging to one another. They really are making others feel like they belong. And we tell our students all the time, you belong at the creek. And I've seen it so much even more evident now in this time as they've reached out to one another when they can't actually see them in person.
Yeah, and that is amazing. And the only reason that happens is because the Lord has really worked through your life and your example and Kyle's life and example. You all have made that a consistent emphasis. And so I'm just grateful that you're getting to see the fruit of that borne out. Because, I mean, as you well know, a lot of times the fruit of your ministry doesn't always get seen until sometimes even years after. But you're getting to see right now a lot of that fruit. And I'm so grateful for the ways that students are living out their discipleship to Jesus in ways that you guys have taught and modeled for them so well. You know, any other word of encouragement you'd want to give to folks here just about what you see the Lord doing in your life, in our church?
I think my last word of encouragement really would just to be in that moment when you don't understand, because I've faced that within the last week with the loss of my friend, and this weekend as we celebrated his life. God just continues to remind me, you don't see the big picture. But my hope and my faith isn't in the big picture. It's in God.
Yeah.
And that has just been something that really, even leading up to losing my friend, is something that he was reminding me. And it was in that very moment of, you don't see what I'm doing now. You don't understand, with everything going on in the world, and then something hitting even closer to home. But there is a plan, there is a purpose. And then even in those moments, not looking for the understanding behind it, but just resting in his arms, saying, I don't understand right now, but I don't have to.
Yeah, and I'm so appreciate that, Krista, because I think one of the things that can be so difficult for me in times of grief and even suffering is just feeling like I'll mess up God's plan if I don't understand God's plan. Like my ability to comprehend what he's doing is necessary for him to be able to do what he's doing, which, you know, just saying that out loud makes it really obvious where the flaws are in that thinking, but we don't often say it out loud. And so we just feel this pressure. I've got to figure it out. If I don't know what's going on, how can he do what he wants to do? And I'm so grateful for the ways that the Lord is bringing you to be able to rest in the goodness of his care and his sovereignty in these days, even in things that only in light of heaven will be light and momentary. And so thanks for sharing those with us today. I'm really grateful for that.
You're welcome.
I'm grateful for all of you too for joining us. And I hope, like me, you've been encouraged by this conversation with Krista and by the fruit of the ministry that she has here at Bear Creek. And I hope that you'll keep joining us for these conversations as we keep reaching out, trying to keep the connections that help us to grow, that keep us loving the Lord with all of our heart and soul and mind and strength, even in these days when we're apart. And I hope that you'll reach out to someone and have an intentional conversation, a conversation that would lead them encouraged by what the Lord's doing in your life, or that you would seek out encouragement from someone by hearing what the Lord's doing in their life. Whatever you do, don't be alone. Reach out to others, connect with them, because you belong. You belong here at Bear Creek, and that's true even when we can't gather together. So reach out, make those connections, and be encouraged. We'll see you next week.